Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with coverage of Game 8 of the 2021 World Championship match between the champion Magnus Carlsen and his challenger Ian Nepomniachtchi, played in the Exhibition Center in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. Game 8 was played on Sunday, the 5th of December. The score in the match after 7 games was 4-3 in favor of Carlsen, and this is the handshake before the start of Game 8. Carlsen white, Nepomniachtchi black, the first game in the second half of the match, and Carlsen opened with the e-pawn, changing from d4 in his previous white game, a game he won. e5, knight f3 and knight f6. We see again the Petrov defense, the Russian defense, played by the Russian challenger. In the previous game with his opening, Carlsen took on e5, but in this case he played d4. Knight takes e4 and you can take on e5. That was played recently by Grandmaster Alireza Firouzja, the young French-Iranian Grandmaster who we will see next year in the Canada's tournament. But Carlsen did not decide to take the pawn. He played bishop d3, attacking the knight. d5 defending the knight. Now Carlsen took on e5 with the knight. Knight d7, that knight was swapped, bishop recaptures, and now white often plays castling, followed by c2, c4. But in this game Carlsen goes for knight d2 and the knight will come off the board like this. Let's hear Grandmaster Viswanathan Anand, the 15th world champion, and his co-commentator Grandmaster Anna Muzychuk give their thoughts on the opening.
Actually, it's quite surprising line for me, but then again Magnus is well known for having a small idea in some of these harmless looking setups, and surprisingly you end up spending much more effort than you need to if you're not careful.
Or maybe he's going just for a draw.
Or maybe you're right, maybe he's just going for this line, looking forward to his rest day as well.
Bishop d6 was Nepomniachtchi's move on move 8. Total symmetry on the board, but white has the first move, so white still has the slight upper hand. Carlsen castled, and now castling from black is dangerous after queen h5, with already a checkmate threat on h7. So Nepomniachtchi, instead of castling, played a different move. He played h5, and suddenly we have an exciting position after the very calm start. h5, what a move! Anand said that Nepomniachtchi got a bit angry here. Let's hear what Peter Svidler thought of it, and then Fabiano Caruana.
h5 people arrive.
Yeah.
People who just left after knight d2 arrives back after
h5.
h5.
Is definitely the way to think about this. I don't know if it's a good move, but it's a move I'm very happy to see.
That is a shocking move.
Okay.
But I have a feeling that it's like you don't play this without preparation. So I mean, I would be amazed and incredibly impressed if Jan just played this move over the board, because it looks so weird. You allow rook e1 and you're going to play king f8.
A lot of analysis was done on rook e1 check, a logical move because then the king has to go to f8. But in the game Carlsen played queen e1 check instead of rook e1 check. Now queen e7 is a logical move, then black will keep his castling rights and get the queens off the board. But after queen e1 check, Nepomniachtchi played king f8. Bishop b4, queen e7, and those bishops were traded. Queen e2, making room for a rook on e1. Nepomniachtchi put a rook on e8, rook a to e1, and rook h6, wanting to bring the rook into the game this way. Queen g5 on move 15 from Carlsen, stopping the rook centralizing on e6, because then the h5 pawn will drop off. This means that white will be able to get control over the e-file with his rook. Also, his bishop is somewhat better than black's bishop, and this led Fabiano Caruana to state that black is in trouble. Nepomniachtchi played c6. Carlsen swapped a pair of rooks, bishop takes, and rook to e1. Here rook e6 is possible, but it's not a good move, because after rook takes, f takes, black keeps the h-pawn as the bishop is protecting h5, but as Caruana explained, white plays c3 and h4, and all black's pawns are weak. and that's why rook e6 in this position is not a good move. Queen f6 was Nepomniachtchi's choice, offering a trade of queens. Carlsen decides to keep the queens on the board, not allowing the rook on h6 to get into the game. Now Carlsen is attacking the bishop on e8 with 2 pieces, so bishop d7 was played. h3, h4 and c4, trying to improve the bishop on d3. Nepomniachtchi took and bishop takes c4. And now a very important moment in this game and also in this match. Look at this move. On move 21, Nepomniachtchi played b7, b5, and that is not a good move. It is a blunder. It drops the pawn on a7. Not a very important pawn at this moment, but still a pawn. And how does it win a pawn for white? Well, Carlsen found it. Queen a3 check is a simple double attack on the king and on the unprotected pawn on a7. You can play queen d6 here, then white takes the pawn, and you cannot take the bishop because there is a checkmate. You can only interpose the queen and then the bishop, and then you will be checkmated in the next 2 moves. After queen a3 check, Nepomniachtchi did not interpose the queen, he played king g8. Carlsen took the pawn on a7, and you can take the bishop here, and then white will of course capture the bishop on d7. Another option is to take on h3, looks spectacular. That bishop is a desperado, so it's going to take a pawn for it. Then the variation is queen takes f7 check. Queen takes has to be played, and then a very nice move, rook e8 check. The queen cannot capture the rook because it's pinned. The king has to go away. Then bishop takes f7 and bishop back to f5, and white has an extra pawn and is probably also winning in this position. But this was the variation that was expected by the grandmasters in the live broadcast that I followed. So after queen takes a7 to take on h3. But Nepomniachtchi played queen d8 back, a move that was criticized. Carlsen saves his bishop from the attack of the pawn, and rook d6. It's attacking the d pawn. Carlsen protects it with rook e4, and now we see a lot of material come off. Bishop e6, the bishops were swapped, and the rooks were swapped, and the pawn recaptures. This has not been a good game from Nepomniachtchi. Fabiano Caruana thinks Nepomniachtchi has not recovered yet from his loss in game 6. Let's listen to him.
Because how can we really talk about a comeback in the match before Jan stabilizes?
Right.
I think that's the first thing we have to do, and we suspected that was what he was trying to do in the previous game. But this game shows that he hadn't stabilized mentally, because his mistakes are not ones that a player of his level makes. He's capable of playing at the exact same level of Magnus.
Yep.
At his best, he is capable of that.
Carlsen played queen c5 on move 28. He is a pawn up, and this is a winning queen endgame for white, and white is going to win another pawn, as we'll see. Queen a5 attacking the a2 pawn. Carlsen took on c6. Queen e1 check. Nepomniachtchi is going to win the f pawn. Queen takes e6 check. White is now 2 pawns up. King h7, another check. King g8 and b3. Giving up on the a2 pawn, but gaining the b pawn. White has 2 extra pawns, and that is sometimes not enough in queen endgames, but in this case it is. You and me would have a tough time winning this endgame, but for somebody of Carlsen's strength, the conversion is not very difficult for him. Let's continue the game. Queen f2, queen e5, queen back to b2. Carlsen gave a check. King dropped back, queen d3. Carlsen is looking for the ideal setup. Queen f2 and queen c3. Nepomniachtchi gave a check. Of course, black's hope is to find a perpetual check in a position or win a pawn back at some stage. King g1 and king h7. The time control has been reached, and Grandmaster Anish Giri liked the way Carlsen is going about converting this winning queen endgame. Let's listen.
Yeah, look, he does sometimes the schematic thinking, like knight on g7, king on g8, and that 6th game. Now he does queen on c3. Look, queen on c3, king on g1.
Yeah.
And pawn queen on c3 protects both the pawns in a very, very stupid manner, like being very close, and it guards all the squares. So it's kind of a geometrical vision that he found here, like with the knight on g7, king on g8. It's a very, very clean conversion.
Yeah, because you can give a check on d1, but I go king h2 and...
Yeah, I can give you 10 tempi.
Yeah.
You can just never, ever set up a perpetual. And you can never ever win many of my pawns.
Carlsen gave a check. g6, queen d1, queen e3 check, king h1 and g5. Carlsen pushed the d-pawn one step closer to promotion. g4, 8 stakes, h3 and queen f3 was the last move of the game. Offering a traitor queens, protecting all his pawns and making sure there are no meaningful checks. And Nepomniachtchi had seen enough. He resigned immediately after Carlsen had played queen f3. And this is the handshake. And confirmation that Carlsen is now 2 points ahead after 8 games. 6 games to go. Nepomniachtchi will have to start winning games very quickly. He only has 3 white games left. And he also needs to start recovering psychologically very quickly. It seems that he had not recovered mentally yet of the blow in game 6. His play in game 8 was not that of the level of a super grandmaster. I hope you enjoyed this video and that if you did, that you give it a thumbs up, that you'll subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel and that you'll leave a comment. I will read them all and I will reply to them all. If you liked the video, it would be great if you could share it on social media by clicking the share button on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram, on Twitter and on Facebook. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.